And that's where I disagree with Plato. I think art, it's not layers removed. It actually points deeper to the truth.
You to be saying this
yeah,
right
well, I'm
now.
not saying I'm right. This is where my mind leads me. Like,
you have to write what's true in order for your art to be good. There's almost divinity in artists.
We all have that desire to create. I guess the best art form is actually us. It's our desire to procreate.
Because in Wolf of Wall Street, 115 minutes of all of this debauchery and excess, and then you have the consequences, right?
The consequences are so not consequential.
Yeah, that's the way they're depicted.
To Martin Scorsese's credit, he's like, I'm depicting life as it is, and this is true. To your point, which I loved, I hadn't actually considered it, is that it's not true enough. There are consequences deeper than what we're shown.
It's like, now I sound crazy because it's 2025 and like we're so used to it.
Maybe our artists, should they be allowed a level of leeway in terms of morality just because they're depicting art?
You know the answer when you made that question.
Well, yeah, but I'm just trying to reason this out because I don't agree with myself, but I can't seem to find a way out of it.
You know, that kind of ties in pretty well with the art conversation. No, because hear me out. Actually, you can make an argument for anything tying to art. That's why it's so fun. Everything, like, there's so much subjectivity in it. But it's the fact that, why did you send me the video? Why did you feel the need to share it with me?
Yeah.
The other day, last weekend, I was grilling my steak one evening, and it was so beautiful out. It was like 7 p.m., so it was golden hour, and the light was just hitting this plant. I know this sounds so random, but it was hitting this plant so beautifully. And so without even realizing, like thinking about it, I just want to take a picture of it because that's just like instinct, right?
And you want to share.
You see something beautiful. Yeah, I was getting to that. I wasn't there yet. I was trying to build it up.
This happened at least once per video.
So,
anyways, continue.
I'll pretend I didn't hear that. I saw the plant. I took a picture of it, and yeah, it looked beautiful. And then I realized, I caught myself, like, because I was thinking about art before, or I guess it was on my mind because we had this video coming up, right? What is art? So I thought this would be a cool concept to share. The fact that I instinctively saw something beautiful and I tried to capture it. And that's kind of the whole, well, I thought maybe that could be one of the definitions of art that we might propose, I guess. It's just the wanting to capture beauty. And then the second part of it was, and wanting to share it with others.
I think I'm gonna defend the TikTok generation, like right now. I think it's our desire to be artists, to capture something and to share it with everyone. That's why TikTok blew up. And that technology just wasn't available before. So not everyone was allowed to have thoughts or to capture whatever they wanted and share it with the world. And now that the floodgates opened, that the line became it was lowered. The bar was lowered to what you can capture and create and share.
I didn't think about this at all in my exploration of beauty, I guess you would say.
I was going to get to this later. I think,
beauty. I said beauty. I mean art.
Yeah, you mean art.
I guess the modern kind of view of it can relate to, okay, what artistic forms do most people engage in nowadays? I guess before, maybe people took up painting more whenever there wasn't technology. And now people have that creative outlet through their phones and social media. Yeah,
we all want to play a part in sharing. And you're right. I take a picture of something. I'm showing, if I really like the picture, you would share it, And Instagram is now a way of doing this.
Yeah.
Look at what I took. Look at what I captured. It's that's one definition of art. The capturing of something you find beautiful and the desire to share it.
I think there can be a mistake whenever we talk about art for art's sake. For example, I think we've mentioned that term before of why. I guess one of the questions, I think it'd be cool to go through all the questions we wanted to analyze when we were preparing for this video.
That'd be good.
But because we definitely won't be able to get to all of them. There's so many. But one of them was about, I don't know if we had this, but it's something we've talked about before. Does the artist create art just for its own sake?
Oh, we've definitely talked about this.
Or does he have to do it for a particular reason?
Would a good artist create for its own sake?
Yes. Is art for art's sake a good thing? I guess.
Yeah, I remember when we've talked about this in the past, you've argued for the fact that a true artist would create the art even if there was no audience for it. That second part of that definition that we just established, the wanting to share it, is secondary to the wanting to capture it. And I was arguing that no, an intrinsic part of being an artist and of art is the willingness or the wanting to share it outside of just you. And
really, I've changed my mind on that. Then I think I think you're.
Yeah.
I thought you were more of the other side of it.
Well, I
too.
remember you saying no. A true artist would not care if no one was watching this masterpiece of a painting that he created. He's creating it just for him.
I changed my mind about that.
Okay.
Completely.
Why?
Doing this research, because I don't think there's art for art's sake. I think it's either art for others or art for yourself. Because what do you mean by art for art's sake? There's an underlying motivation behind it. You're not going to do something. It's like the when we talked about goodness. You always seek the good, no matter whether you think that you are or you aren't.
Right.
You're always seeking to do something that you view as good.
Right. So when you create art, you're seeking
the good, right? So you're
not just the art.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, but I'm going to defend your previous view though, since you've changed your mind, because I feel like it shouldn't be discarded so easily. A good artist will continue creating. Oh, I don't know. I'm sure there's some famous artists from the past that didn't get famous in their time, but they got famous after. I don't.
Yeah,
really
I know. Like, I think that's I don't know if those, because I also agree with that. Even if an artist isn't being like commercially successful, for example, that's not the point. That's not why he makes art, right?
But commercially successful is just another word for people consuming it.
Yeah, but
well, not always, but in today's day and age.
I guess that's a good point, because I hadn't considered the Van Goghs, for example.
Yeah.
Like he created art, no one saw it.
It's for art's
but
sake.
I don't know if it was for art's sake, because he had people around him that he would.
But what if he didn't? What if he's just alone somewhere? And I feel like we still have that intrinsic desire to create. Now I'm defending. I
don't know. I feel like you either have to. I guess okay. So this reminds me of Keats. Keats would make art to cope with his, and he would write explicitly about that. John Keats, the poet, how beauty, he had all this suffering and trauma in his life, and poetry was an escape for him, right? So it was kind of
okay. So I guess it doesn't have to be for art's sake. And if you classify it as I'm creating this for its own sake, there is good attached to that. You're seeking a good, whether that's for your own.
It's like the capturing of beauty to cope with the suffering and pain of the world.
Yeah, so there it is. There's a different motivation outside of just creating it for its own sake.
I guess I was going somewhere else with this.
You were. I recognized when I derailed you into this argument, but we could go back to your previous points, because in this 2 minutes, there's a million different strings we could pull. Do you want to start with the philosophers? Start with Plato?
Start with a quote.
The reason that starting with the philosophers is so useful is because they give a guideline to okay, this is where we started with the conversation of art. This is this is a definition that people start with usually, and then we can expand on that. Whenever we start somewhere else, we end up having to backtrack to get to that.
Okay, start with the philosophers.
Yes, but I didn't study the philosophers.
Sorry, I spit on.
No, it's okay. But I didn't study the philosophers as much as you did this time. So you start. What did the philosophers say about art? Unless you have a first definition that when you first started thinking about this, you thought, oh, this is what art is. Did you have that? Before we started the research?
It was the capturing of beauty thing that we talked about before.
Okay.
I thought about that, but no, I think we should get into that, because I thought it was the philosophers. I did kind of study a little bit what Plato said about art, what Aristotle said about art.
Yeah, let's start there, because that gives us a bit of a guideline on, okay, this is at least a good definition that we can use. Now we might disagree or agree with them, but then we'll go from there.
Imagine disagreeing with Aristotle.
I disagree with Plato on his definition of art.
Oh man, I want to hear this.
Well, so no, I could be wrong.
What was his definition of art?
Oh man, it was...
I remember it was.
Oh please!
I mean, he basically. I didn't see a definition, but in the Republic, in his book, he wrote about art being mimesis.
Okay, imitation, is that what that means? Yeah, art is imitation, is what he said.
Yeah, and when he says mimesis, that's not a good thing.
No,
in Platonian terms. Yeah, because so he had the theory of forms, right, where he thought everything, our reality is just a mere shadow of the ultimate reality, which is the world of forms.
Yeah, and I hate his conception of forms, by the way. It's because I don't understand it.
Hate it?
It's because I don't understand it. But I don't like the idea that what we perceive is only a shadow of reality. Like I feel like I'm perceiving reality. Don't tell me I'm not. But I'm very not clued into what he fully means by forms. So
yeah, I don't think we really understand it.
Not nearly enough. But I think his perception of art is an imitation of an imitation. Like it's so far removed.
You're thrice removed from the truth.
And that's where I disagree with Plato. I think art is not it's not layers removed. It actually points deeper to the truth. You
to be saying this
well, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just, this is where my mind leads me. Like I don't think art is any lesser. Like I think Jordan Peterson talks about, maybe it was him, actually might not have been. He said, I could write down exactly what I did yesterday, line by line. And that's true, but I can read Crime and Punishment or another great novel, and even though it never happened and it's fiction, there's more truth in that than what I did yesterday. Now that's art pointing to deeper truths than actual truths. I think art can push you closer to a more full, accurate view of reality. I don't think it takes you out of it. I don't think it's, I mean, by definition, maybe Plato is right. Like, yes, you're interpreting now a layer removed, but I think it can point you, it's like a shortcut to get to the actual layer that you're seeking, which is God, I guess. I mean, he never says like the highest form is God. He wasn't a theist. So, but that's what the natural conclusion would be. Mm-hmm. So art is just a shortcut to get there.
A shortcut to get there, or maybe a reflection of the divine, or
But I think he just looks down upon that. He says like, stop looking at art. In fact, barely look in front of you. Look deeper into the forms. But I feel like this is what we got, and this could be a really good tool to get all the way over here. That's why I say I disagree.
That's kind of what Aristotle said as well. Aristotle disagreed. So I guess I would feel more comfortable saying
I agree with Aristotle.
as opposed to I disagree with Plato. But
me too.
I think Plato warned against art because I read more into it, and he actually, in the Republic, he also talks about, he says art is dangerous. He doesn't say we don't need art. Okay. I think he was just very cautious about it. He didn't want people to, because Plato he emphasized truth, and he says art can really pull you away from truth.
That I do agree
if you let yourself be seduced in a way by the emotional appeal of it without using your actually faculties of reasoning.
Yeah, I agree with that, and that actually makes a lot of sense. Art can definitely at least distort the truth, and because you're separating it one more layer of reality, and you're putting your own twist on it and your own interpretation of some deeper truth.
And it could be an incorrect interpretation by the artist. And that's what he talked about Homer, for example. He hated Homer. Did you know
I didn't
this?
know this. No.
Yeah, he said that we need to get Homer out of the city because he doesn't know what he's writing about. He writes these beautiful stories, and I don't know if he gave credit to the artistic merit of his stories. Maybe. I mean,
okay, but we'll get into talking about the difference between artistic good and moral good within art.
Yeah,
but at least here you're talking about the moral good of Homer's art.
Yeah, so he said Homer doesn't know what he's talking about, and we've talked about this before, right? How
that's so uncomfortable.
We romanticize the idea of artists have no idea what they're creating, and it's so profound and so beautiful and so good, and that's like amazing. But no, I mean, I think that's a romantic view of it, but you can also see the danger of that. If an artist has no idea what he's creating and he's misguided, which is kind of what Plato was getting at, then they can really deceive and it maybe even inspire evil or people to do evil.
That's a good point. I mean, it's not like Plato's stupid. I completely understand that, and I agree with that part of it. I just think he's not giving artists enough credit. If that's the interpretation. I didn't know that he disagreed with Homer, but he's wrong to disagree with Homer then, because Homer, that's literally the oldest book. Is that not it? Like the Odyssey, or not the Odyssey, the Iliad? Is that not the earliest written?
It's definitely a foundational when it comes to storytelling.
I would argue that will outlive Plato.
Yeah, but that's not an argument for it being
Yes,
good.
it is, because it points to truth in a way that is more easily accessible for us.
So I guess I didn't read that much into why he hated Homer, or why he didn't like Homer. Hate's a strong word.
Yeah, we're putting words into Plato's mouth, and he's not here to defend himself.
No, in Republic, he said we need to get Homer out of the city. Okay, so I think hate is a safe word to use. So I think so Homer portrayed heroes, right? And he had these epics and journeys, the hero's journey. But some of the heroes are very immoral. So
immoral? Yeah.
immoral to the point where it's like it's kind of like Machiavellian. The
Okay,
ends
we're definitely
justify
gonna
the
get-
means. And so I guess Plato, and then you think about what I guess we can get into Aquinas too, and the principle of integral good. If there, for example, in Homer, you can have this heroic, virtuous character, hero, that's inspiring for people to pursue virtue. But in the first act, he does this thing that's questionable, and then Homer doesn't really re-acknowledge the fact like there's no consequences for the
Right.
evil.
Not always, yeah.
So then you can kind of glorify that small aspect of evil that maybe occurred offhandedly in the beginning of the story. And I think Plato would have said that just that is
Disqualifies
enough
the whole thing.
from being morally good.
Right,
Not
right.
to say it's not artistically
No, but
good.
this ties directly into what I'm sure we'll continue talking about later in this conversation with shows like Peaky Blinders or Breaking Bad, where they're not inherently immoral works of art, which we can get more go deeper into that later. But they're definitely not always condemning every single bad action that the character might take. But the reason that I would say that I might disagree with Plato in that interpretation of Homer and in the Iliad or the Odyssey is that it shows truth. Like the truth is that we are not all virtuous characters, and it would be bad art for every character to have to be morally upstanding, and
Yeah.
it's just not real.
And that's why it's good, because it's real, because
That's right.
evil is a reality of world.
Yes.
So Hemingway said, in order for some writing to be good, for art to be good, it has to be true.
yes, that's
So
above all.
evil's a part of, so you look at these Christian films, like especially nowadays, I feel like, there's so much garbage and filth in our culture in terms of shows and movies that are just really evil. And so I think Christian artists look at that and they're like, I don't want any of that. And they
They'll
just
remove-
portray the good. And then I think that's why they're so cheesy and
Yeah,
bad.
they're
and-
not real. They're not true.
Yeah.
You're only showing a version of reality that you wish was true, but it's not.
Yeah.
And I was wanting to get into this as well. The difference between something like that, a propaganda piece of content that's not art. That's not art. I would say that wouldn't be art.
Propaganda piece of content. What do you mean?
Like a Christian movie. I hate to pick on God is
Oh.
Dead or something like that because that
Yeah.
gets picked on a lot, and I don't remember it enough to judge it. But it would seem that a movie that is wanting to point towards goodness by
Preach
only
at you.
showing that, when you're getting preached at, I would say that loses its not only its artistic merit but also its truth. Like you might be wanting to avoid all controversy and bad characters that are flawed and human, but in doing that you rid the truth from the actual piece of work.
Yeah. And even last video, we talked about these characters, not idealized, but the most virtuous of characters like Maximus in Gladiator
Right.
or Aragorn in The Lord of the Rings. And you think, well, wouldn't that apply to these? But no, because they deal with evil. Evil's still a part of the story.
Yeah, and those we were right to kind of criticize today's modern stories. We don't see a lot of really good characters anymore. Like we have a lot of Walter Whites and Thomas Shelby and a lot of The Sopranos and a lot of gray area main characters. And we are still missing a lot of just really wholesome, virtuous main characters. Like that's still, I do think we're missing that, to Plato's point. But I think I wouldn't classify all shows or movies or pieces of content. I mean, think of like not the Great Divorce, sorry, the Crime and Punishment. That is one of the best pieces of art, and it deals with a character that, slight spoilers, kills two people at the very beginning and is dealing with the consequences of that internally for the whole novel.
Yeah, but here's the thing about Crime and Punishment. I feel like Crime and Punishment definitely has the consequences of the evil.
So
And
that is
I think
separate,
some
yeah.
shows try to get away with showing the evil or the immorality in characters and then have them get away with it.
Yeah.
And then you can argue, well, in real life, not everything is perfectly just. Okay, I'm going to reset the camera. So what was I saying, Bruno?
You were saying, continue your thought about in real life, people don't always get away with it.
Right. But I think there's something different, like, because, okay, the artist can say, I'm portraying what's real. People are evil and people get away with evil.
Your lamp is moving a lot. Sorry. It's gonna yeah.
But I think that's a separate topic. I think whenever, for example, Hemingway, I said this earlier, Hemingway said, write you have to write what's true in order for your art to be good. Write the truest sentence you know, and that's what he said.
I think it's because he's getting at the point that for us to get to the highest truth or the highest beauty or the highest good, they have to go together. Like you can't have the highest good without it also being true and beautiful. You can't have the highest beauty without having the. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. I'm not gonna. I'll get lost with the three of them. But yeah.
What I was getting at with that is that he emphasizes it has to be true, but I think it's good to. I think you should talk about truth not just in the sense of true. This is true to me, or this is true in the sense that it actually happened in reality and it inspires my story. I think you should get to a metaphysical kind of truth, and that's kind of my argument for why you shouldn't have this kind of depictions of evil in art with the characters getting away with it in the art piece itself.
Wow, okay.
Because that's not metaphysically true.
Even though it might have happened in that instance, it's not true in the sense
whenever
that...
I think when you're creating a work of art, there's something almost... metaphysical is a stretch. Well, it's not really, but I think most people would be off-put by that. Like,
okay, let's dive into that.
You're romanticizing it a little bit too much. But here's what I was getting at with that. The reason I came to that conclusion of like being okay with saying there's almost divinity in artists, and that can sound really ridiculous to most people.
It is. I agree.
It is ridiculous, right?
No, it's not ridiculous. I think that's exactly right.
Yeah. And I think there's several ways of reasoning about it. I think one of them is the fact that no one's actually a creator except God.
Right,
so
but you can partake.
All artists, it's not like you're not creating something from scratch. You're using something. I'm going to cut you off.
You've jumped through like a million points, and I want to stop at the beginning because you just made the claim that you don't believe that artists should portray a character do bad and get away with it.
I'm still on that point.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna get so lost. Continue though.
I'm still on that point.
Okay, you're still on that point.
So you read about Saint John Paul II, right?
A little, yeah.
And what he said about
artists.
Yeah. I forgot what I was getting at with John Paul II. What was I just saying just now?
Before I interrupted you so rudely?
No.
I'm sorry. It's just you were saying that artists have a little bit of divinity in them, and I agreed with you. And that you said that God... we're not creators.
Yeah.
We only help.
You co-create with God.
That's right.
So I think Aquinas would say... So Aquinas' definition of art is right... Do you remember it? It's right reason... with an action to be taken or something like that. But I think it sounds really confusing. But when I broke it down...
It was, and that's why I ignored it.
It's kind of weird. But it was a few days ago that I thought about it more. And I think what I kind of concluded from his definition was that the artist is responsible for using his right reason, for using his moral conscience in accordance with right reason to create something that is consistent with metaphysical truth.
Yeah. So he shouldn't be lying in the sense that he could portray a character, do evil and get away with it, because even though it might happen in reality, sometimes it's not metaphysically true that anyone can get away with anything.
Exactly. You got it.
I got it. And I think you're right. I will push back on it because I think that art, okay, and this is where Plato would say that I'm getting dangerous, doesn't have to, there's some artistic merit in, what am I trying to say? I don't think that for
one, sorry.
No, go for it.
I agree that there's artistic merit, and that's a distinction.
No, I know there's a distinction.
Even Aquinas makes.
Yes, I'm sorry. I just rambled on and I didn't actually get to anywhere. What I was trying to say is, in a show like Peaky Blinders, and well, no, that's too broad because it's a show. I would rather
talk about The Wolf of Wall Street.
Okay, let's talk about. Well, no, that one is a clear example in which you're of course right. I need a more morally gray movie because.
Breaking Bad, the show.
Yeah, no, but that one he does get his his comeuppance at the end. Like he doesn't actually get away with it.
I kind of have a bad feeling about it.
No, his family suffered the consequences of his actions. He died. His brother-in-law died.
I agree. But here's my objection.
With Breaking Bad as a piece of art?
Yeah. With it being morally good.
I didn't say that it was morally good, but I would say that it's not morally evil.
Okay. I guess, okay, maybe I'll argue this. Maybe it's not in line with Aquinas' definition of art. Maybe that's what I'm saying.
Okay, I could disagree with
that. Because it's not right reason.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I think the reason for it is You're right. He shows the consequences. He dies, obviously, at the end. His family suffers from...
And Jesse as a character suffers so much for every single... Like, every time he does anything that goes against his conscience, he suffers greatly, and it's depicted beautifully. So I take it back. I do think Breaking Bad is a morally good... That's why I didn't want to talk about that one. We could talk about Wolf of Wall Street.
Morally good, let's be clear about what we mean by morally good.
Okay, there's... an art can be good both in its artistic merit and its moral...
But are you considering the principle of integral good? Because if you are, then
I think so.
You cannot say
define
that.
it again, and I think so.
So Aquinas wrote about the principle of integral good, where he said that in order for something to be morally considered morally good, for example, Breaking Bad, for it to be considered a morally good piece of art, then there can be a single component in it that is evil. So
no, that's not what he argues. Maybe I'm wrong. He would argue that nothing can be evil and be gotten away with, pretty much, or it has to hold to the metaphysical truth of reality.
No,
because
it was
crime
more...
and punishment depicts evil.
No, I'm not saying you can't depict evil.
Okay.
I'm not saying, of course, Breaking Bad depicts evil,
so
and that doesn't cancel it out. What I'm saying is one intention behind it is evil. And let me explain what I mean by intention in the example of Breaking Bad.
Sure.
The very end, you're saying we see the consequences. Why is there, for lack of a better term, happy music playing? It's almost like it sounds stupid, but it's like you don't get so these are the consequences of leading this life.
I don't think the artist needs to spoon feed you. I think it's okay for an artist to be like, hey, maybe he thought that he was satisfied with his decisions and that he's going and dying happily. But the artist does have a responsibility not to lead you to sin, but it doesn't have to spoon feed you and see, this is bad, kids, don't do this. Or I think it can have a morally ambiguous ending, or like the lesson doesn't have to be so black and white, because then it's not artistic.
Yeah, I'm not saying it should spoon feed you at all.
No, but I think there could be a balance between it's more morally good, but it's less artistically good.
How did you feel about it though? Because when you talk about art,
super satisfying.
I think it's right to be able to say, how did you feel about it? Because that's kind of your first interaction with it, is how you feel. Then you can reason with it. And
not only that, but that's how you judge art. Yeah, like you can judge art by how it made you feel. If it didn't make you feel
as
good.
Opposed to looking, the 3-act structure is good, it breaks into it. Like that. No one looks at that.
My favorite pieces of art are the ones that make me feel the most feelings.
Yeah.
But going back to...
so you felt satisfied.
That was, I think, a really good ending. Now, you could say it could have been a better...
What do you mean by satisfied?
Hold on. Sorry. You could say it could have been a better, more moral ending by having somber music and by the show allowing us to reflect more on the morality of his choices. And that would have dropped the artistic merit of it. Like, you could have a balancing act in which... it could. But I think an artist's job is still to also make an artistically good piece of work. And as long as it doesn't compromise on its morality, then that's good. And I don't think it... Yeah, maybe like it could be a shifting scale. It doesn't have to be black and white. But I think there could be a case in which, like we were saying about like a movie like God is Dead, you have your morality really high. And that's just a bad example because maybe it's not a perfect example of a good moral movie. But
like It's a Wonderful Life, for example.
A movie like A Wonderful Life is both artistically extremely high and morally perfect. Like that's why it's considered a perfect movie.
For us, yeah.
No, it's a perfect movie. Like I can make that, like it is both morally right and artistically right to the highest degree. Like we'll make that claim in the next video when we talk about it.
It's a perfect movie.
Yeah, I could probably argue like that's, but I think not every story is going to be perfect. And oh man, I don't know. I disagree with the fact that it's bad under Aquinas's viewpoint.
I think it's really hard to have a concrete answer. It's, like you said, it's hard for it to be black and white, but it is black and white when you're taking...
There is a line, yeah.
When you're taking into consideration the Aquinas'
but let's talk about
definition.
Wolf of Wall Street, because that one is more clear.
So I was going to draw a parallel between Wolf of Wall Street and Breaking Bad, because in Wolf of Wall Street, it's very clear how, I looked at the runtime. I didn't actually watch it because I can't bring myself to watch that anymore. And the first... Yeah, it's 3 hours, and the first 150 minutes are all glorification of Jordan Belfort.
Right.
And then he has to show the consequences, right?
But the consequences are so not consequential.
Yeah. That's the way they're depicted.
Yeah. And it's because it was reality. he could say that's the truth. That's what happened in real life.
Okay.
But to your point,
The metaphysical reality is definitely not in line. But if you just looking at that, 150 minutes of all of this debauchery and excess and
sin.
corruption, adultery, drugs,
Sin,
greed, everything, everything you can name.
Yes.
And then you have the consequences. He gets divorced. He's on parole or something like that.
Like a few months.
And then then he goes back to, and now he's giving a seminar and inspiring people.
But he's still alive right now, and it's real life, and that is what happened. So to Martin Scorsese's credit, he's like, I'm depicting life as it is, and this is true. To your point, which I loved, I hadn't actually considered it, is that it's not true enough. Even though it's true right now, there are consequences deeper than what were shown, and that goes into his soul. Like, he didn't delve deeper into his soul is really corrupted, and he's further away from God.
The consequences of other people, of the world.
That's right.
He made the world the worst
and
place.
Yeah, he didn't show that in its true life, so that's why the morality of the movie is lower. Because, what would you say if I said, 150 minutes of sin, and sin are still justified in that movie if the consequences were just as bad? Would you say that movie is good?
I think there would be a better argument for saying that it's not, kind of, but I mean, it's still like the unnecessary scenes. You would still have a objection. Oh, just like pornography in the film.
Let's talk about that, because it's a movie like Les Miserables, or how would you pronounce it?
I don't know what that movie is.
Maybe I'm mispronouncing it wrong, because you definitely know Les Miserables.
Les Miserables.
Sorry, I don't know
Miserables.
French. Did you see that movie?
No.
Okay. Then let's not talk about it.
It has nudity?
I don't remember if it has nudity. Maybe it's just...
I feel so prude.
No.
I talk about these things, because I guess I was just immersed in just normal life, right? Like people in school, and this is all. And I watched Wolf of Wall Street multiple times. Yeah. And now I've just shifted my perspective to the point where I'm just on the other extreme.
I think you're right to be on the other extreme. I think it's a safer place to be. And that line can shift from person to person depending on how much that will put you in a near question of sin, or it might just tax you more morally. And that could be a shifting line between person to person.
Except for pornography, though. That's never justified.
Okay. That's what I was getting to. Yeah. I agree. I mean, you should never show pornography or see pornography. But I think...
Because even in the act itself, it's an injustice to the dignity of the actors, even. So not
okay, but what if it's not showing... But that's where it gets a little gray, because what if it's not showing nudity, but it's still depicting...
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I mean, and then if it's depicting it in a negative sense where it's
no, I'm sorry. Even if there's no nudity, if it's like... I guess it's kind of morally gray.
That's why I was pointing to the movie, Les Miserables, but she's a character is a prostitute, and it shows... That's a bad example, because I don't know exactly the movie well enough to point parallels to it. But I guess what I'm saying is I could see an example in which a movie shows morally depraved actions taking place by the main character. Mm-hmm. Like in this Wolf of Wall Street movie, imagine in that second half that he does get his comeuppance. You could say, well, that definitely increased its morality in terms of a movie, but it's still not good because he showed the debauchery in a very explicit sense. Is there a line there where it's like, okay, but maybe that is real, that is true, and if we're showing truth and that's the priority, then it could be justified in art.
Yeah. Well, now we're getting away from the metaphysical truth. So if you're considering that the artist is responsible for showing an accurate view of reality from a metaphysical standpoint, as we had established before, then no.
Actually, can we pause here real quick? What is the difference between truth here in reality and the metaphysical truth that you're referring to?
Metaphysical truth is not... It's not under the constraints of time. Okay. It's just like the order of the universe, right? Like the inherent justice of the universe. If you do evil, it's like what Jordan Peterson talks about. You can't twist the fabric of reality without it snapping back at you.
Okay, I just wanted to explain that real quick.
I think the artist is responsible for showing that, because then you can glorify evil and it reaches the hearts of people to the point where maybe, I think most people, I don't want to get straight off into another thing, but I thought about this too. It's how political figures, it's almost like artists have more influence over people than political figures, 100%. Because people think more with their emotions as opposed to with reason.
Yes.
So it's just
not only that, but artists, they try to capture something and in time, art is long, life is short. Like art would live longer than life. I don't know where I read that quote. It was one of the quotes that I wanted to talk about. But going back to the morality of the actual actions and the responsibility that an artist has in only depicting goodness, you can quickly see how it's like, oh, well, if you can't show certain evil acts like fornication or something like that, then what about killing someone? And then, well, should we only show virtuous people? And then we're back to the God is dead, or a really Christian film with...
no, I don't think necessarily, because we could list examples like movies like It's a Wonderful... I'm not saying... Even you could even depict more, even so filmmakers, I think were a lot more, it's like now I sound crazy because it's 2025 and people like we're so used to it. Right. But even like 50 years ago, artists were really creative with the way that they implied violence and adultery and evil and greed.
I agree with you 100%. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. But why is it that, so the distinction we're making is it's not that it's not that implying that it's evil or it's bad for an artist to do.
Having it. You can have it. Yeah. It's just
the explicit showing of it.
If it leads people to commit sin.
That's where I'm going. Yeah. So we're talking, I guess, in two different points. The point that you're now getting at is there's not only the responsibility to have a metaphysical truth portrayed by artists, but also in the manner in which you're communicating that truth, don't lead other people to sin. Does that make sense?
It's both of those, I think.
I heard this actor, which I only knew him from being a villain in the show Arrow. His name is Neil Mc something. I'm sorry,
McLovin?
No, Neil McNo or something like that. And he was saying that he got hired from a show because he refused to kiss another woman in the show.
Yeah, he got fired.
Yeah, he got fired. I think I could be misremembering the story. And then recently I heard someone else, I don't remember who, talking about the morality of kissing another actor. Like an artist, I mean, their job is to portray another character and that's their job. But in reality, it's not like, and the artist, this actor was saying that, when I get hired to play villainous characters, I'm pretending I'm shooting other people, but I'm not actually killing them.
Yeah.
But when I'm making out with another woman, I'm not pretending to, I'm actually doing that.
Yeah.
And I'd never considered that. Like, it makes sense. Like, I wouldn't want my wife to be an actress, kissing other guys out. Like, you're right. People are used to it, and maybe there's a role for artists to be doing that, because I don't want to say that no art should. Yeah. I mean, what do you think about that then?
I think I agree. It's unnecessary.
Well, I don't know that it's unnecessary, because
I think it is
a Wonderful Life.
I think it is a violation of the. I think am I being more conservative in It's a Wonderful Life right now? Because you're right. You're right. They do depict a kissing scene,
but it's not depicting.
But maybe it was
his
wife.
So maybe our artists. Should they be allowed a level of leeway in terms of morality just because they're depicting art?
You know the answer when you made that question.
Well, yeah, but I'm just trying to reason this out because I don't agree with myself, but I can't seem to find a way out of it.
I think, so here's our problem. We grew up in a time where we had these films and it's all we saw, and now we're trying to be morally consistent.
Yes, but even before this time, how old are movies? 50 years ago, it's not like actors weren't kissing each other on screen.
Yeah, and 50 years ago, still, most people were not actually practicing Catholics.
Okay, true. All that is true. But I don't want to then say that, I don't know that I'm willing to say that an art is immediately, a piece of art is immediately downgraded a little bit if it shows two people kissing.
What do you mean by downgraded?
Okay, we're talking about like the
artistically?
Moral, no, not artistically, morally, yeah. Or that the artist is sinning when I don't know. Like, I would never consider that until recently when I heard this, and I agree that like if I was an actor, that is literally, not that I have any desire to be an actor, but like that is what would keep me from being an actor. Like that seems inherently very wrong. But like you said, if you grow up in a society that is very normalized, then it's normal. I don't know how I feel about this. I threw this without actually having a solution to this, because you're right. It seems like I know the answer to it before asking it. It just seems very prude. Yeah, and
it seems very prude. I think it's shocking for most people, for like people to have these positions.
Yeah, hopefully people can tell me why I'm wrong, because I'm willing to be wrong on this. Maybe it's not infidelity, because maybe it's. Crap, I don't know. It seems
no. I think inherently it's a violation of the dignity of the person, because you're narrowing down the person to just the object for pleasure without it being founded on an actual relationship and a marriage. And
I of course think that if two people that are not husband and wife in a movie are having sex, that's wrong.
Oh, you're drawing a distinction between kissing.
No, let's go to the very end. At least we know that's wrong, and I would say that maybe not everyone would agree with us that that's wrong, but I could very confidently say a married man or even an unmarried man shouldn't actually have sex on screen as part of the movie, you know? And then you could go, well, what if it's simulated and they're not actually? But they seem to be. It's probably still wrong because of the neurocation of sin that it can cause that we were talking about. But then you get even further. Okay, what if the guy's playing a husband of a wife, and now it's at least in, like, the art is showing inside of a marriage what would be appropriate in their relationship. And it doesn't have to be sex. What if it's just they're kissing or a kiss? That's not...
Yeah,
that's
St. Thomas Aquinas talks about this.
Oh,
you can always look at St. Thomas Aquinas for clarity and answers.
I'd much rather let Thomas Aquinas...
When it comes to dating or relationships, or people that are like betrothed in his time, he drew a line in any act that... So any kissing, for example.
Arouses. Yeah. No, that's not what that's true. But what I'm saying is...
What do you mean? How is that not the same thing?
No, I'm talking about in movies. Like
it's the same logic for me, the way I see it, because if it leads to arousal, which is meant to lead to the conjugal act, then it's immoral.
Yes, but not
even in a movie, period. Like no exceptions for any.
Sorry, I agree with that. What I'm saying is between a husband and wife, that's not immoral.
Between a husband and wife, that's not immoral, of course.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
So what if they're portraying that in the movie? Like the thing portrayed is not immoral. So
and they're not husband and wife in real life.
Yeah, because then you can only have husband and wife playing husband and wife.
So then no, it's the same thing. I don't draw exceptions. Okay. I don't think there should be.
Did I just make you have this conclusion that you didn't have before this? So now, okay, but then shouldn't we, as consumers of art, only consume morally good art?
Yes. So
you shouldn't watch It's a Wonderful Life? I don't agree with that.
Oh, you just trapped me.
I just trapped you.
It's a Wonderful Life has one kiss.
I'm assuming that
actually, I can get out of this. It's a Wonderful Life has one kiss, and it's not like what Aquinas would define as a passionate kiss.
Okay, but it's fine. You could still not... I can't go around kissing another woman even if it's not passionate because I'm married.
Yeah, I think you technically kind of can. I don't think you should.
No,
but
I don't think I should.
It's not erotic. It's not meant to lead to anything else.
Okay.
Then I think that you're morally still good.
I see how that's pretty much the only way you can get away from this, but I still think that's not morally okay.
It's not prudent.
How? I don't know. You tell Catherine, hey, Bruno can go kiss another woman even if it's not leading to anything else. I think that's morally wrong.
I think most of the time it would be.
Except in movies.
No.
This is pretty much the conclusion that we're forced to. No, I'm agreeing. Like
this is kind of... I don't like to talk about... We should get off of this.
Yes, because we don't know.
The moment we started talking about this...
we immediately knew that we weren't going to be able to get out of it.
I didn't want to get into this. What else?
Hopefully... There's an answer. I think no, we might just not know the answer right now. But like I'm sure one of two options. Come on, I know we want to move from this, but either one, every actor that has kissed another person that they're not married to is sinning, and we are sinning by watching that, or they're sinning but we're not sinning by watching that, or none of us are sinning and it's all good. Like that, there's one of those three options. I just don't know which one it is.
Bruno, I think we had made so much progress, or I had. Don't just lay out the three options. I'm on one of them. I'm with the no kissing at all. Radical. It's crazy. People are gonna flame us in the comments. I just
don't know that. I'm not sure I've reached that conclusion yet. I'm thinking there might have been something that I've missed or that you've missed that would allow for that to be okay. I don't know. Okay, we can move on.
If the kissing is, kissing that would stimulate someone to want to, lead to that, then it would be immoral, as St. Thomas Aquinas wrote. I think. I
have another trap for you though. What if they are husband and wife in real life?
That's still bad. I guess actually, it's
imprudent for them to do that in public.
It is. It's scandal. The sin of scandal.
So you should never have a scene in which characters make out. regardless of whether they're husband and wife.
Yeah.
But what if you're showing reality, Habo? That's what I'm trying to get at. Like, an artist has a responsibility to show reality, metaphysical truths that we were just talking about. And okay, let's get out of the movies.
We need to get out of this, Bruno.
How you have to let me explore things that we're not comfortable having an answer for.
Talk about sex scenes.
Okay, we don't have to talk about. You started this.
I didn't bring up the sex. I never said the word.
You said
sex.
Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah, I just mentioned it.
Yeah, but what were we talking about if not
greed, corruption, adultery? Yeah, but I mean, we don't have to talk about, okay, what's the morality behind sex scenes in movies?
But we did. It's not an interesting conversation for you. Okay, we can move on.
No,
if it's not.
not really.
Okay, it is for me a little bit.
It wasn't in my
It's
notes.
because yesterday I saw something that made me think. I think it was a short about Michael Knowles talking about this with another host about the morality of it. I don't know. But I think it's important for us to talk about.
So what did he say?
Well, what you just said, but he wasn't pressed on it like you were pressed on it. So I don't know what conclusion he would actually have.
What do you mean by pressed on it?
So the movie, like, It's a Wonderful Life is wrong. Like, he wasn't actually saying, like, he didn't actually get asked that, and I don't know what he would have said.
Oh, I see what you mean.
I was pressing it on, like,
yeah.
I think the reason that it's a worthwhile conversation, even though it's uncomfortable and we don't have the answers, is because
I have the answers.
I'm not convinced on it.
You keep saying, like, I have taken a position on it multiple times.
But it's because, like, we might have the wrong
I'm
conclusion.
Not disclaimer. I'm not saying I have the answer. I'm saying I have an answer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I know maybe it's not interesting as a conversation. The reason I think it's interesting, let me just make my case of why I think it was justified for us to have this conversation, is because we're seeking truth and we're seeking to do good and avoid evil, and we should be cognizant of what we're watching, and as art, like the responsibility that an artist might have in playing a moral.
You're making good points. I think I wasn't saying we shouldn't talk about it. I just meant, like, I think I just didn't prepare for that. And so you're more of the style of, like, let's figure it out on the spot. And I'm more of the style of, like, I want to think it through before I speak about it on camera, because I'm going to say things that are dumb.
That's true.
And I know that I said a lot of things that are dumb just now about this, and that I'm going to regret. So that's why I prefer not to get into things that
we don't know about.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a case for why we need to. Is because
we need to, but not with three cameras pointing at us.
There's 0% chance that we know what we're talking about in any of this conversation. Like, there's a level of ignorance that we're coming in with.
Yeah, of course.
And I'm just so comfortable in of course you know that I don't know what Plato is, and I'm not claiming to know that Plato is wrong. Like, I'm very okay with us being wrong on this, because we're not claiming to know the truth. We're just seeking it.
Yeah, and I'm not saying I'm right about Plato or anything. I'm just saying I actually spent time looking into it.
Yeah, that's true. And we didn't actually spend time looking into the morality of sex scenes in movies. Okay, continue. Let's get out of this conversation. You're right.
I was going to say, never mind. I don't know how we can move on from that.
No, there's plenty of questions I want to ask you regarding art.
Okay, ask me something.
Do you have a favorite art form?
I didn't think about this. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Yeah, I would say film.
Okay, I would say film too. I wanted you to
disagree. But I don't have like a cool justification.
I have a reason for it. I think you would probably agree with it. The reason I think that film is the best art form is
because there's sex scenes. You weirdo. You absolute. Okay.
It's because it combines the most amount of other types of art. There's the screenplay, which is a written form. There's the photography, which is just a moving photograph. Mm-hmm. There's set design and audio
acting,
and that gets into my next question on. I just laid out a bunch of different arts. Mm-hmm. Can anything be art?
Yeah, according to St. Thomas Aquinas, it almost seems like anything can be art.
I was really expecting you to take the opposite approach. I didn't read into Aquinas this time. I didn't know he said that anything can be art.
He defines art as an intellectual virtue that's something rightly ordered towards an end. Right
before starting this podcast, I was on Instagram looking at memes, and you're like, "This is a place for studious
culture,
pursuing art," and I was like, "I'm gonna ask you about this, because in theory, I could have come back and said I am consuming art, and you would have had to agree."
Yeah, I wouldn't agree that it's like particularly edifying or elevating art. But I guess I would be forced to actually
let me review memes.
Actually, Well, we can get really annoying and like
let's.
talk. We've been so annoying for this podcast. I don't want to get more, but like just briefly,
a little.
just briefly, Aquinas he wouldn't say that TikTok is art, because it would depend on the TikTok.
Oh,
okay?
this is exciting.
This is so stupid. It would depend on the reel.
Yeah.
If a reel is morally vacuous, or if it doesn't. So I guess it would depend on the reel.
Two things right here that I want to get into: whether TikTok is art, and two, whether it has to be morally good for it to be considered art. Like, what if the realm of morality is not in there at all?
Yeah,
It could still be art.
Yeah, so under the Thomistic definition, no, it wouldn't be art.
Whoa. Okay.
Anything, that's not with right reason. That's his definition.
I just didn't understand his definition.
I'm just using
I get
his
it
definition.
now,
Yeah.
So it has to be morally good for it to be art, or for it to be good art.
Yeah. So
I was making a distinction.
I
was making a distinction between good art and art. I thought you could still have art, and it's just not morally good.
He doesn't even define it. And I think that's
interesting.
to the credit of the artist. I think he respects the artist so much that he's like, the artist should be intellectually aware, as opposed to Homer. Whenever Plato wanted Homer out of the city, he claimed that Homer was ignorant. Aquinas is like, no, the artists are intellectual and they know about virtue and morality, and it's their job to depict it accurately.
But he would also say that you're not an artist if you're not creating anything of moral significance. Because then that's not even art.
No, I don't think you have to have an agenda or
not an agenda.
No, what I'm saying is like it has to be morally grounded in truth. I think I didn't mean to imply that it has to be promote virtue or anything like that. It has to be based in metaphysical truth and reality and goodness and beauty.
So a banana taped to a wall in a museum, under the Thomistic definition, would that be art?
No, because
there's just no moral realm is kind of what I was getting at. It's just
maybe the no moral realm thing, but there's also no skill, and I think Aquinas actually takes that into consideration when he says like to perform an action. I think that perform an action part has that implication of it's a craft.
I think I agree with you, but then in this, we're taking the artist's intentions out of it. It's just a skill. But what if the artist intended for you to have some, like, in high school, you'd be reading a book and the teacher would be like, see when he wrote, and then he points to the most insignificant sentence and then he points to some meaning to it. What if it's like that with the banana, and it's like the artist actually did have some significance in it that we're just not seeing?
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, okay, do you think artist's intentions matter, or is it just a result? Or the skill?
Yeah, I think the artist's intentions do matter. I think the artist is responsible for acting in accordance with right reason. As I think I like his definition.
Oh, I agree. I'm sorry. You're right. That's true. I guess what I was getting...
Because when you say that, you're saying that intentions matter. When you say that, you're acting in accordance with the right reason.
But what if... I guess the point that then we would come to is that intentions matter, but that's not all that matters, because even if your intentions are good and you create morally wrong... Yeah,
it's one component of it, but it doesn't do the whole job.
Yeah, that's right.
This has been interesting so far, this conversation.
It's not at all where you thought it would take.
No.
Let's go back to where you wanted it to go.
I didn't have an agenda. I didn't know where it was going to go.
Okay, but you studied a lot more other topics regarding art.
No, I mean, mostly I looked into Aquinas, and then, there was one cool thing that I thought about that I don't think I've mentioned. That was...
We have plenty more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go. So we wrapped everything up about what we were talking about.
Yeah, but not on TikTok, actually. We could wrap up the TikTok.
TikTok.
Yeah, because I think...
It's going to be crazy going from TikTok to what I was getting into.
Okay, but we can finish TikTok, because I think that... TikTok and social media opened up the floodgates for more artistic pursuit. I think I believe that humans all have an intrinsic desire to create art. Maybe you could push back on that, because maybe I'm wrong. But if that's true, then that's what we're trying to do with something like TikTok or podcasts or YouTube. Like, we're just... Like, the floodgates opened, the bar became lower. Now everyone is creating art. So it sounds like I'm defending TikTok, which I'm generally opposed to, people swiping on TikTok. But it's like everyone wants to be a little bit of an artist, and they want to be creating and like capturing something and then showing it to people.
Yeah.
So what's wrong with that? Why would I think that's probably good, but I don't know that TikTok is good. So why am I in this position?
No, because I think it would be a mistake to say that there's no good art on TikTok. I just think generally most of it probably isn't because of my experience with it, but or from what I hear from other people.
Yeah, sure.
But no, you can have, like I said, right? The Thomistic definition doesn't say with right reason, but it can't be in a 10-second long vertical video.
Yeah, I get it. It's fine. Yeah,
that's crazy. When I was like 10 years ago, I think I joked with you about that. Like with a DSLR, I like flipped it over and I'm like, I'm going to do vertical video. You're like,
Damien Chazelle filmed a short vertically when TikTok and stuff like that started coming out. Apple paid him to do like a movie vertical. And it's like, why do we have to consume movies? It's the same amount of space, just vertically. We're just used to this. And now the default is vertical now for people. They'll pull out their camera and they'll take a picture like this or a video like this. My default is still like this because I don't know, that's where because of YouTube. I watch everything on YouTube, but people's default is this. But I think okay, you're right. This conversation has gone all over the place. But I think it's because we realize that art and conversations regarding art is basically like our thesis and our theme of this channel and what we want to discuss most about. So we just try to tackle everything in one video, and that's super like not right. So it's very messy. But
super
I think
like not right.
like each one of these questions that you probably wanted to touch on could be its own video, and we just shove them all into one.
Yeah.
So
this is
excuse our mess. I guess is what I'm saying. It's okay. We have a mess. We can clip this.
Yeah, maybe we'll get some TikToks from
we can get some TikToks for that vertical content.
So can I say my thing now?
I'm sorry.
So now that we talked about TikTok, I thought it was cool when earlier we were talking about the instinct to, well, actually it is relevant to TikTok, the instinct to capture and create and share with people. And I think that's a very pure thing. And I think you can trace it back to, it's going to be like cliche to say, but Genesis, right? Because God created the ultimate artist, right? He had his creation and he thought it was all good, right? And then on the sixth day, he kind of had the same experience. Well, okay, I don't want to say he had the same experience, but I like to think that he had the same experience as I did when I took a picture.
Yes, how God had the same experience as you did.
Wait till I make my point, okay?
Yes,
I'm getting somewhere. When I took the picture of the plant, and I thought, this is very good. I want to share it. And God's like, I have all of this beauty. I want to share it with someone, and He created us. And I think that's actually Thomistic.
That's actually
I'm not being crazy here.
Inside of the whole.
That's exactly right. That's what Aquinas said. That God, He didn't need us. He doesn't need anything. He's God. He created us not for need for Himself, but because He wanted to share His goodness in Himself with us.
So when I was pressing you about art for art's sake, that's where you were going with that. It's that it's not for its own sake. It's to be shared.
Yeah. So artists are servants of the people.
And they're godlike in this, like the spark of divinity that you were talking about. We all have that desire to create, and that's why I guess the best art form is actually us. It's kids. It's our desire to procreate. Like that is us being as artistic. Like that is us fulfilling our desire for being an artist. Is to create something. Not only that, but we want to capture it and have it last longer than we are. Like. What a big part about art.
Oh, co-create with God.
That's right.
I thought you said procreate.
Maybe I did say procreate because we are. Well, forget it.
Yeah, because that was kind of weird. I was stuck. Maybe I'm sorry. No,
it's okay. Maybe I did.
Just clarifying. Co-create. Yeah. Continue.
Pause. What does procreate mean? To
like
have children.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is maybe what I meant.
Oh.
Like we are creating.
Yeah.
And it is something that it will live on past us. Part of what makes art valuable and how we know that art is... I just asked you what procreate means. Like, of course I mean. Shit. I'm so lost. Part of what makes art valuable and art, like a good piece of art versus a bad piece of art, is its long-lasting nature. And our intrinsic desire to create something that lasts past us is most deeply reflected on us having kids and us participating with God in creating something.
Yeah.
So that is probably the best art form is kids. I take it back. It's not movies. Like that is us fulfilling our natural urge to create. Please have some insights back.
I think that's beautiful. I don't know. I don't want to ruin it with some stupid.
No, we could just absorb the side.
I guess I had a thought about priests. They can't participate in the greatest creation. They must be able to. They have their own creations.
No. I mean, not everyone has kids, and I'm not. Yeah, I think having kids is partaking in
the greatest creation.
Yeah, and not everyone has that, but we can still create. In fact, we're all itching to create something. That's where TikTok comes in. And I think that's why, like, my favorite types of movies are those in which an artist is like so obsessed with creating something, from like Whiplash or Ratatouille or Coco or Rocky. Like, well, I guess that's not art, but he's still striving to create something. Or Sing Street.
You
like
could say it's art. Beautiful.
All my
boxing.
favorite movies are like artists like really striving to create something. And I think it's that desire to create something, and it's most deeply seen in us procreating. It's in having kids and participating with God in creation.
Yeah, I think
that's my greatest
an interesting point about that too. I guess here's an insight: is procreating is oriented outside of the self.
Yeah.
So there's no such thing as procreating for procreating's sake. You're going to be responsible for a little human, and
that's exactly right.
And that's kind of the same as artists that create, obviously not procreate. Like, we're not talking about procreating here. We're talking about like an artistic accomplishment. It should be made for service. Here, have this.
Yeah.
And see my view, how I saw this beauty, and let me share it with you. And maybe it can help you. And so that's why art for art's sake. That's why I was getting away from it. Yeah.
You're right. I am back to agreeing with me.
With me?
No, because you disagreed with you.
I disagreed with art for art's sake. Yeah, I get what you're saying. This has been the most confusing video.
Yes, okay. I agree. Let's get back to the having kids, because I have always had a huge desire to create art, and like you have too, and this is partly why we're doing this. But I have never been more excited than to have a kid. And like the fact that he's going to be born in 2 months, that's all that I've been thinking about. I get to partake in creation in something that will outlast me, hopefully, God willing, and that then will pass. Like, it's just like the generational, like that's art, and that we are like participating in God's art
creation.
Yeah. And God's art. Like that's art.
When we say that artists co-create with God, it's even more true with parenting.
It's the most
because
true then.
It's a true collaboration of you take care of the biology and God will take care of the soul of the child. He infuses the soul.
And I guess he creates the biology too.
Yeah, but you have some participation in that.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that's exactly right. That's what
we've talked about so many weird things.
Yeah, in this video. We didn't have any order to this.
Yeah.
Hold on. No.
So I have some cool things here. I wrote down that.
Hey, you always.
Oh, I have some.
No, go. You have what?
I have something that might be wrong. I think it sounds cool, but bad art is the devil's propaganda.
Whoa, that is true. Yeah. I say as if I've thought about this enough. It sounds true. Why do you think that?
Because of what we were talking about earlier, of artists that create, even if it's unintentionally, art that depicts evil and glorifies evil. You're telling the lie that you can get away with this. Yeah. And the devil loves that.
And it is propaganda.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, I love that quote. Is that yours?
As far as I know, maybe someone else has said it.
That's awesome. I love it.
But it felt bad when I wrote it after, because I don't want to like accuse artists that are, because I'm being really extremist with what I think is good art, morally good art.
No, but there is such a thing
because of going down the Aquinas path.
Not only that, we have established in the past video that there is such a thing as morally good. Even if we don't know it, that still exists. Mm-hmm. So you're not claiming to know all of the art that exists, whether it's good or bad, but you are claiming it is either good or bad.
Yeah.
And you're saying that bad art is the devil's propaganda, and I 100% agree with that. That's really good.
Thank you.
Did you have
Was that pretentious?
No, not really. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Did you come in here with a definition of beauty? Not beauty, sorry, of art?
No.
Okay.
Imitation was what Plato said.
I had one that is like the least artistic definition of art. Well, no, Oxford's definition is probably the least artistic definition of art, which is super ironic. Let me read it just for, I don't know why. The expression or application of human creative skill or imagination, typically in visual forms such as painting or sculpture, producing works to be appreciated primarily for their beauty or emotional power. Just thought that it reminded me of like Dead Poet Society when he rips up the textbook of like explaining what a poem is. It's like you just sucked all of like the goodness of from a definition of art away from art. Like that's such a like definition that lacks artistic.
The point of art is that there's no words to describe art.
Yeah, but you could come up with creative definitions for art that are artistic, even though they don't encompass everything. And I guess that's like the logical definition. Like everything that Oxford says is probably accurate, but like it doesn't point me anywhere. Like, but I guess this is kind of meta because that's what art does. It points you to a deeper truth. So you could have a definition of art that's more artistic, that's less factual, but it's like deeper, or it leads you to the truth more directly. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I have a few definitions from Aristotle. Art completes what nature cannot bring to a finish. I don't fully agree because cannot is bold.
Mm-hmm. No, I would agree with him in the sense of when people talk about Dostoevsky. No, it was Tolstoy. Mm-hmm. He was a huge proponent, or he talked about his art being as like a way of communicating things with people that could not be communicated otherwise. So if someone asked him to like explain War and Peace, he would say, read it. Yeah. That's the only way I can
art is the most effective mode of communication that exists. That's John Dewey. I don't know who that is, but yeah, that's exactly right. What do you think of this? Art is long, life is short. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the aim of every artist is to capture something, to arrest motion and leave behind past his moment, which ties back into, kids and generations. Like that's our intrinsic desire to stick around. It's like we're all trying to be God. Like we're all just seeking immortality, and we're trying to leave something behind that's like we can create and it stays here past us.
So that can be dangerous, though. You can idolize your creation as an artist.
That's what I mean. You can have kids and try to shape them to be exactly like you.
Well, it can. Well, I don't know if that ties in with what I was getting at, but it can be a vain pursuit of just basking in your creation and idolize and stopping there, and not like realizing or humbling yourself enough to know like it wasn't me who created this. Really, it was with the help of something else. And I mean, I worry about that too with this channel and some of the films that we've made. I find myself, after making them, I've told you this before, just looking at them over and over and over, and I just like I get
sucked into it.
You get kind of delight from it, knowing that it's yours and you made it, and that's good, but it can be dangerous. Prideful. Yeah, so be careful.
I think a definition. So I started with a definition of art before I did any research. Like my first thought is like something created to intentionally evoke a feeling in someone. That's a very basic definition that I thought of what art would be, and I still kind of agree with it. What I arrived at the very end is art is our attempt to be God. Like art, like creating art is just our attempt at divinity. Like we're just trying passionately to create. We're trying passionately to leave something behind. And there is a danger in art, which I guess maybe I do agree with Plato. But that's why artistic pursuits are like at the highest. Like that is like a really high good is pursuing art. It's like you're kind of pursuing divinity. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, you partake in it. JP2 writes about this in his letter to artists.
I didn't read it. I did some research on it though.
He talks about that, how artists have a vocation where we've talked about it, like collaborate with the ultimate creator. You co-create something. And something I find interesting is creating art is hard work. It's not easy. I think people can have that idea of like, but it is hard and makes you wonder why. It's kind of the whole service thing as well. Whenever you go out, you set out to create something artistic, you have these idealized views of how it's going to be, and there's delight in it too, for sure. And I think those are like consolations you get as with any other work that you do. But it's really, we know about that ourselves with the short films that we made. It kind of sucks. So then you think about like, why do I love this so much? If it's in the moment, it's so stressful and tiring, and everyone's like, I don't know. I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I think I saw this. I sent you a video a few days ago on an analysis on the movie Whiplash, and there was a specific moment in which the YouTuber was pointing to the fact that artists have replaced saints, or like how we used to view saints, we now view artists as like their suffering is so justified because before, I guess, saints would suffer for the greater glory of God. I guess like they're like a saint is someone that, or a martyr maybe, someone that would suffer or die for God. And now we hold artists to this pedestal of like, look at them struggling and suffering. Like it's kind of like envious. I wrote something on Whiplash. It romanticizes the endurance of agony. And we tend to do that with artists, which is what you were saying about like art is hard. And there is a danger too, though, in romanticizing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, now I don't know what I think about Whiplash because of everything that I've kind of gone into with. I don't know if I would say it's. I know. This
That's
is
my favorite.
very,
it's one of my favorite movies.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, but tell me what you think.
No. It's just because I guess it shows a truth in a way, as it is. He chose this, which was arguably a lesser good than the good of him pursuing his family, a family.
Sure.
And
he was content at the end, or there was like ambiguity artistically.
Yeah, he kind of glorified it in a way. But I haven't watched it in many years, so I don't want to like take a hard stance on it.
No, let's try to. I know we spoke about this at the beginning of this, but it was so messy. Let's try to actually narrow this down. So it's an artist's job to, like, an artist's job is also to create an artistically good piece of media, and that ending is, I would say, excellent at the ambiguity in which it ends. You know, he was defeated, and then at the end, him and his abusive professor that he has been kind of battling against the whole movie, they kind of come to a sense of, this was all worth it. You reached greatness, and there's some acceptance in that. You know, it's ambiguous. It's not like, it doesn't show the movie or his actions as good. But maybe your point is that he should have had more consequences to his lack of better pursuits. That's why I really like La La Land. It shows the consequences of them choosing the life outside of each other, and it shows then the consequences of what it could have been. But what I think makes it an artistically excellent movie is that it doesn't tell you what is good or not. Like it still holds that artistic integrity of letting you kind of figure it all out, and it doesn't tell you what is right and what is wrong. I think that's okay for a movie to do. In fact, I think that's what makes the movie good.
I want to agree with you. I'm having some trouble fully getting there because of everything that we've already talked about, metaphysical truth and all and I don't want to get into that again.
Yeah, but we're not philosophers. We're artists. Like the artist's job is not just to show moral truth. I mean, a morally good piece of art. It's also to show an artistically good piece of art.
I mean, if you're talking about artistic, La La Land is an amazing artistic accomplishment. I'm not denying that. I
know you're not, but I guess what I'm saying is, what makes a good movie, it's having the artistic merit be at its highest and its moral merit. You know, like if the morality suffers because of the artistic pursuit, then that's bad. But the artist's job is not solely to focus on the morality, but also the artistic nature of it. So
you need both. You can't have just one or the other.
Yeah. So
because then you have the Christian movies, and on the other hand, you have Wolf of Wall Street. Because Wolf of Wall Street would have been it would have been a terrible artistic accomplishment if the ending had been right after everything falls apart. Yeah. Because you had all of this. It doesn't make sense.
That's right.
So, but you can't though. You can't have the artistic without the moral. So.
But I guess the whole reason I brought that up is because they're still artists. Like they still have to focus on the artistic integrity of the movie.
Yeah, but I think I agree more with Aquinas now, to where I say artists are not just responsible for artistic, they're equally responsible to portray metaphysical moral truth, in addition to being artistically skilled and to have a good artistic accomplishment. Yeah,
that makes sense. It's hard for me to disagree with you when you just cited it, Thomas. You're saying, oh, I think I agree with Aquinas, and I can be like, I think you're wrong, because that makes a lot of sense. I just don't have a.
So, for example, with Whiplash, I haven't watched it in a while, so I can't take a hard stance on it. But my feeling is that, man, and I haven't thought of. So my whole perspective on art is changing, and so now I'm applying it to Whiplash. Yeah. if he shows, him choosing, I think the artist, Damien Chazelle, definitely shows, what's the name of the guy? Norman?
No, Neiman.
Neiman.
Yeah. Or
he
Neiman.
Okay, one of those.
I don't know.
And he kind of surrenders to the dream of maybe getting married or his family, or all of these,
that dream, yeah.
all of these things, like his vocation from a Catholic perspective, in favor of worldly success. No Catholic would say that's morally good.
But the claim that art can lead someone to God, and so an artist's job is to create the highest, like the best art. Now, granted, his art is hard to see. Is there a moral realm to him being the best drummer? Like, can a great piece of art in his artistic realm be morally good or bad? That's hard to say, But maybe he has a responsibility to be the best drummer, Like there is...
not at the expense of what's, like you said, what's important. What's actually important.
Yeah, but
because you said the greatest artistic is co-creation.
Yes, I did
or
say
living
that.
out your vocation. Yeah, living out your vocation. Yeah.
But I also never said that everyone is called to have a child.
Everyone is called to be a father. You agree with that?
Yeah, but then I look at brothers, like
they
perpetual
are
brothers.
fathers to in other ways, spiritual fathers.
Yeah. But I guess you could be a spiritual father and still pursue your artistic pursuits. I know I'm disagreeing with me from 5 minutes ago, but you're right.
I think this is true. I think you're making a really good point that I hadn't thought about before, is that people that are the greatest at their crafts do have to give up on being a father. Otherwise, you don't have the time you can't. That's why priests don't get married, because they have to devote their whole energy to they can't be split between two things. So maybe worldly success in that sense.
It's not worldly success. It's an artistic pursuit of greatness. And that's why I like the ending of Whiplash, because it doesn't tell you...
Can you explain why it's not worldly success?
Okay, it is worldly success, but it's not just worldly success. Like, there is some intrinsic good in seeking greatness in art. Yeah. So I don't want to just diminish it to, only worldly success. Like, that seems disparaging of it.
I think it's both.
It is both.
It's worldly success, but
it can be good.
You are called to pursue greatness in everything that you do. You should.
Yeah,
if you glorify God. But you're not glorifying God if you're pursuing greatness while at the same time surrendering to everything else that you're called to by God.
Yeah, but you don't know that in this case, in Whiplash, he was called to pursue that woman and get married and have kids.
No, I think it was a metaphor.
I know it's a metaphor. Yeah. I guess what I'm trying to say is, I'm sure Ronaldo has sacrificed a lot of time in being a parent to practice at his art or at his skill. If he was the best person, he would be have that in perfect balance. But maybe his family has taken a hit in his pursuit of greatness.
Of course.
And you could say that that's morally good or wrong. I mean, what would you say to that? Maybe he's...
I don't know. Don't know his life.
I don't either. That's a bad example. It's kind of imprudent.
No, actually, you made a good point with that, because Ronaldo is the greatest. Well, a lot of people say he's the greatest soccer player, and he does have a family, and they look fine.
Yeah, we don't know. Yeah,
but we don't know.
Yeah, but that's why I like the movie Whiplash, or I guess La La Land is an even better example of what we're talking about. It was a clear choice. Like, you choose the woman that you could see raising a family, and they actually show you what the life would have looked like. Or you choose the worldly success that you're talking about, which is your dream and your passion. And maybe you'll be resentful if you end up doing this other one, but like, you're called to... I think all the best art forms are a seeking of your vocation and trying to figure out what that is. Think of like all the greatest movies. It's like trying to find out what our purpose is in this, or like what am I meant to do? Like, what is my vocation? And at least it applies perfectly with this law line. So I'm going to assume that all the great pieces of art have that. I
mean, I thought of It's a Wonderful Life, and that applies. So yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe in Batman.
It is his vocation of his responsibility for the city.
Same with like Spider-Man 2. Okay, what is another great movie? Okay, yeah, we could assume that my point stands that the greatest art pieces, I guess movies, show a battle to find your vocation.
I was like, that sounds like a stretch, but anyways.
Yeah, maybe it is. I don't know. In La La Land, he is unsure about whether he made the right choice. I guess at the end they show like some sort of comfort with their decision. Like the artist doesn't condemn that decision or acknowledge that was a good decision. But I think that's fine for the artist not to make a moral claim in that.
The question is, does the artist show the ramifications of
In that case, they
evil.
did. Oh.
No, that's assuming that what they did was evil, which I don't
Yeah,
think.
we're getting side. This is not an immoral realm. Now we're just talking artistically. Like, what is the best artistic? I don't know how.
It gets complicated whenever you're talking about art because you're not just talking about the specific case. Because obviously, like Ryan Gosling could have done his bar and actually pursued a family after later on. But I think whenever you create art, you have to agree that it's metaphor. Like he's not talking about logistically, he can find a family in the future. He's talking about, I'm speaking on what's more important, family. So you have to take that into account. Mm-hmm. Damien Chazelle was saying Ryan Gosling chose his artistic passion over
the life he could have had with Emma Stone.
Correct. Now, does he have an opinion on it? Does the director have an opinion on it?
They kind of acknowledge. I would say yes. I would say
so.
That they're both content with their decision. They give each other an acknowledging like nod at the end. It's like, I'm okay with this. Maybe I'm misreading it, but it's also good that the director didn't say, and they were happily ever after. And like they show you a very bittersweet ending, and they have that whole movie. You're rooting for them to make it. You know, it's a love story, and then it's like it's not a love story. So. Yeah, I think he did an excellent job at not showing his hand too much. He kind of lets us decide. But I think if what I said at a few minutes ago is true about the greatest artistic pursuit is having kids, because that is literally the fulfillment of us as artists, you know, partaking in God and creating something, then I would be forced to say that anything that chooses that puts something above your family or your potential for creating a family would be bad, and I'm not sure that that's true.
That's why I think that I think La La Land is an amazing artistic movie. I don't know if I would watch it anymore.
How? Okay, you have to back that up. What are you talking about?
What do you mean? I have been for the past.
Yeah, so you're saying that but I just made the claim that it's a morally good movie. It showed the consequences of your actions.
I was saying that I think it might not be.
Yeah, I'm trying to make the claim that okay, why might it not be?
Because of what we were just saying about how he clearly shows a preference for his passion over his duty to.
But he doesn't have a duty.
Okay, not duty, but the higher good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then he almost glorifies the passion to the point at the expense of the higher good. And it ends not with the consequences of choosing the lesser good, but with a kind of glorification of
not a glorification, but like a contentment with their decision. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but how you can't only watch art that you deem to be of the highest morality.
I don't, again, distinction between highest morality promoting virtue and depicting metaphysical truth.
Yeah.
Right reason.
Yeah, but this movie still makes you ponder. Like part of art is making you question if the artist is right or not.
Art hits you. I think most people don't ponder. Most people don't.
No, I think that movie is excellent at making you question.
Okay, I think it can. But I think you should take into account people as a whole. Most people, I think, watch movies and are emotionally affected by it. And you can be subconsciously affected in the way that you live. You know about this. Like movies have shaped you.
No, let's talk about Friends, actually. The show, Friends.
Exactly.
Because that show, I didn't grow up watching it. Thankfully, I watched it, I think, after my morals were sufficiently established. And I wasn't able to be swayed by the way they treated casual sex and the glorification of casual sex and multiple partners. Like I already had my morality established by then. But if I was a kid growing up without my parents instilling those values in me, I would have gotten my values from a show like Friends. I agree with you. Like that does exist. But I think in a show like Friends, they're not even questioning whether that's good or not.
It's the devil's propaganda.
And I would make that case, and I probably would say that it's not good for, like, Friends is not a good show, because even though it could be artistically good and it's funny, it's morally very deprived. Like
depraved.
Depraved. However, I don't think La La Land is anywhere in that realm. It might not be at the highest possible moral good, but I don't think it's nearly like it doesn't say that it's good that they chose anything immoral. Like that's just art.
So I want to get to what we were saying about Friends. People are going to think we're crazy. I think it's good acknowledging it, though.
Yeah,
we're just being consistent.
We are being consistent.
Yeah, look at St. Thomas Aquinas and then follow his train of thought, and you would arrive at that.
Now,
Friends is
evil. When I watched Friends, but I'm also not saying that no one should watch it. Like I think that's where I'm saying that there is a line between how morally formed are you and is it really going to sway you. I agree with you that it can sway you without you acknowledging it. But I think it's not immoral for you to consume, not it doesn't have to be. Now, the artist has a bigger responsibility in instilling good values, and in that case, they failed as artists in that way. But I can still find some good in I don't know.
Well, with the principle of integral good, you can't say that it's morally good as a whole, but I think even like the greatest saints would, from a place of humility, like I know I have my values in shape and in order and everything, but I can still be swayed. I'm still a sinner. I still have a propensity for it. So I'm not going to expose myself to things that are evil. So St. John Bosco has this quote about art.
Oh, but before you move on to that, this was excellent.
This is relevant.
I know, but that was you didn't even let me process that. That was really smart. You're right. I'm assuming that I'm morally formed now enough to be able to consume friends. And you just said like a really good point. Maybe like you're overhyping yourself, and it could still affect you even if you don't think it does.
I notice it in myself. I behave like today. We were talking earlier about how you were watching a YouTube video of
Pints with Aquinas. Yeah, they were smoking
a cigar.
And I was like, all day I was craving a cigar. I was like, why? And then I realized, I was watching that video earlier. So I came here and I smoked a cigar.
And you smoked a cigar. Art shapes a lot of your behaviors in your life. And this is like a trivial example, but it can have more serious effects. And the quote I was getting at with St. John Bosco.
Not that smoking a cigar is wrong or in any way immoral.
No.
It's just you're making the point
I think at that point it was good.
Yeah.
Edifying.
Yeah. I think to your point is that whatever you consume has an effect on you whether you realize it or not.
Yeah.
Okay. Continue.
Even subconsciously.
Yeah. Saint who?
St. John Bosco. Mm-hmm. He was the one that we learned about Yeah, I told you last. It was one of these past videos. No, it wasn't a homily. It was this talk at the youth ministry.
I wasn't there though.
He was talking about him, and he had these oratories, which were like schools that he had for these poor children, and he would form them, basically educate them and teach them about the faith and all these things. And he really used art and theater, and he really thought that was really important for shaping young men.
I think it's.
But he really was very careful about making sure that he read everything so that there was no like you didn't have the Friends situation. Yeah. Friends is like extreme for his time.
But it's not extreme like that. Most of today's society, like the recent, like the errors that we might find in society, stems from the fact that casual sin was casual in our entertainment, and it wasn't given enough like gravitas.
Yeah,
I agree with that a whole lot. Yeah.
And so he had a quote, St. John Bosco, about bad art, and he said, because someone could object, well, I watch it because it's artistically amazing and like there's merit to that. And he said, if someone offered you poison on a golden goblet, would you still drink it? So he said you can have beauty. And then I read somewhere something about beauty being evil being vested in the garments of beauty. Like you can be deceived into thinking.
The Wolf of Wall Street is one of the most like best movies artistically produced, like excellently. The story is so gripping. The dialogue is excellent.
The pacing,
Leonardo DiCaprio,
the pacing is crazy.
Has one of the best performances I've ever seen. Like there's a lot of art, like beauty surrounding something that you
but it's evil. Yeah. It's poison.
Oh, we're making a huge claim here. Yeah, I agree with you.
No, it's evil.
No, I'm not disagreeing.
Pornography is evil. Okay. That movie has it's that simple.
Yeah, okay. It's not that simple though.
It is.
What I'm trying to.
Why not? Is it morally evil or is it morally good? You don't have an ambiguous.
No, I'm not saying that you can be ambiguous about this, but there is it could be more evil. I guess your point is, what side is it on? Maybe it's less evil, but it's still evil, so you shouldn't consume anything that's evil.
I know that I keep going back to Aquinas, but that's because I'm basing everything off of him, and that's why principle of integral good. It's the same thing.
No, maybe you're right. Like, living in culture today is really hard to avoid all that is evil. Because so you're saying we shouldn't consume anything that has anything evil within the movie. And there's a lot of
no. Again,
no. Evil in the sense that, like, okay, let's go Peaky Blinders. I'm sure there's sex scenes in it. I'm not sure if they're explicit or not. But there are.
Yeah, I wouldn't anymore.
Yeah, but it's showing the
consequences. Peaky Blinders glorifies.
No, okay, maybe it does glorify it, but it shows the consequences. I mean, Tommy is a very broken man. You can see his brokenness every single episode, especially towards the later seasons.
Okay, you can say that, and like for example, the same argument for Wolf of Wall Street. Well, okay, no, it's not a fair comparison.
No, because in this other one, it shows the consequences a little bit more.
It's not a fair comparison, but I think I base it off of this. What's my feeling after watching Peaky Blinders? Do I feel like, oh yeah, that's a cautionary tale, and I like feel more like,
Yeah, you can though. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
It depends on the person. It can depend on the person.
Okay.
It's not a blanket statement.
So for me, I watch Peaky Blinders, and I'm like, that was so cool. Tommy Shelby's amazing.
Yeah.
That's what I get.
No, and I do too, and most people do too. I guess it can also be supplemented with, it's also like, I would not want to be Thomas Shelby. It shows you like the consequences of his actions. I think of a show like Succession. You watched Succession, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're watching scumbags fight to see who's the dirtiest scumbag throughout the whole show.
Yeah.
But it shows you the consequences of living their life. It glorifies it in a sense, you could say, but that's up to interpretation, is I guess my point.
It is. It can seem subjective.
That's what I'm trying to get at. And I hate the subjectivity of things and the relativism of today.
Yeah.
But I'm not willing to say maybe that it's evil. We're missing something, I think, a distinction.
I don't know. I'm being very extremist about it, but I feel like this is what I think is correct.
Yeah, and I think you're right to press it then.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find a more nuanced take, because I think that knocks out most art.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it still art, or is it just bad art?
That's what Father Riepiger says.
No, but it could be art and it'd be bad art.
What?
It's still art, it's just bad art. You'd agree that The Wolf of Wall Street is art?
Oh, I think it's great art.
No, it's not. No, you think it's bad art because
it's great art, but it's horrible moral art.
No, I know, but then it's bad art.
Actually, honestly, if it's so annoying, but it's technically, with the Aquinas definition, not even art.
That's what I was getting at. You're locked into saying that it's not art. I think it's art. It's just bad art.
I mean, I can say it's art in like a modern way. It's art. Now, from a philosophical standpoint,
yeah. If you're locked into that definition and we're understanding it correctly, which we very well could be misunderstanding.
No, I thought about this a lot. I looked
trying
into
to give
it.
you a back.
No.
Okay. No, I haven't studied. I didn't study Aquinas in this at all, actually, so I don't know what he said about it.
Okay, I don't know. Maybe I'm sorry. I need to admit more humility. I think I interpreted it correctly.
And with that interpretation, that would not be art.
It just seems very clear that art needs to be ordered with right reason.
Okay, but then Peaky Blinders can still be art, or Breaking Bad can still be art, or any depiction of bad characters or doing something immoral, as long as it is metaphysically sound. Correct. And it shows this. But that's what I'm saying can be interpreted differently by different people. You said Breaking Bad, it might glorify it too much, or Peaky Blinders, sorry, it might glorify it too much. I'm like, yeah, but I think it shows the consequences of being a man like Thomas Shelby.
I think that's kind of...
that's where prudence comes in. Of like, are you 14 years old and very susceptible to...
You're trying to make me more nuanced. I like it.
Thank you.
But I don't know.
Give it to me.
I don't know.
Okay, don't give it.
I think it can be pretty obvious when something is being glorified, and there's no debate. You can say we can find the one person in we can find the one person in the world, maybe with some, but there are some like Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah, that's what.
Is there nuance with that?
Yeah, I think there's nuance in that. It does show the downfall of him, and he's I agree with you. I just think. I'm unwilling maybe to say that it applies to everyone. And maybe Wolf of Wall Street there's a distinction maybe between. I'm thinking that in the case of Wolf of Wall Street, it's not found and grounded in the truth of reality. But I could say something like Peaky Blinders is. Now, what I'm trying to say is that you and I can disagree on that, and I'm not sure that there is. I believe there's a truth, and one of them is, and one of it's not, maybe. But we might just not know it. And to your point, let's just err on the side of caution. Why do something that might not be good? But then you're not consuming art.
There's so much good art from the past. It's crazy that I just made that statement.
Oh, you sound like the guy in Midnight in Paris.
Even today, there's good artists making...
Well, okay, I want to make a point about art today that I feel like I'm going to back up today's generation in terms of art. Everyone says no good movies are coming out today. Art is doomed. Bad music everywhere. I think what I was saying about good art is art that lasts is because we're only seeing the art from the past that made it from the past into today. So you're not seeing any of the bad art that was created.
So what about the Oscar nominees like how you can look and trace back into history and look at like all the Oscar nominees from the 20th century were like masterpieces, and all the Oscar nominees from
that's a good counterpoint to what I said. But do you see what I'm saying as well? Like in 20 and 50 years, there's still going to be classics from this era that people are going to look like, and that was amazing art. And they're going to be like, now we have a bunch of filth, but there'll still be that one gemstone then too, and they won't see it because it's amidst all the other garbage. I think we have plenty of masterpieces that are being made today.
Maybe.
No, I can say that actually pretty definitively.
Okay, but yeah.
I'm trying to back up our generation.
Yeah,
We're still good artists.
I know Andrew Clavin said that the last greatest movie ever made was The Godfather or something.
Yeah, I like Andrew Clavin, and he's smart. But I disagree with him. I think there's other great movies.
I don't know about that because I honestly, I'm not that like well versed in modern films or any film really.
Can I say something about Andrew Clavin? He just had a interview with Matt Walsh. He released a new book called Something of Abel, the Kingdom of Cain, I think is what his book is called. And he was saying something about some of the best depictions of art are depictions of evil or of tragedy. He mentions the Pieta,
by Michelangelo.
Yeah, I mean that is like the saddest thing ever, but it shows great beauty.
Jordan Peterson described it as the crucifixion of Mary.
Whoa! Oh, that's super. That's
the crucifixion of woman, her dead son.
Can I say the quote that I liked that Andrew Clavin said in that interview? Give me a second. I want to find it. He said, "If a man can create such beauty out of tragedy, imagine what God can do." With us, we are the tragedy in this example. Yeah, I like that. That's unrelated to what we were talking about, but I remembered when you said Andrew Clavin. Yeah,
that was the passion, the beauty that came out of that is only God can do that. So
I think I still think we have good art today, and that's what we'll talk about in 20 years.
So here's what I was thinking about that is that, you know, you've heard the quote that art is a reflection of the culture, right?
Yes.
So, So if your culture is healthy and has good values, then the art is going to be healthy and have good values. I think definitely there's been a decline. I think most people would agree in the values
of our culture.
Therefore, there's been a decline in the quality of our art.
I'm going to push back on that because I want to. No, I mean, yes, there has been a decline in some values and an increase in others.
You don't think as a whole we're more morally decrepit than 50 years ago?
But it's hard to say. Because
what about like...
yes, but...
There's so many things.
There's so many. I don't even have to list them.
Yeah.
I'm just not so sure.
There's so many. I can't believe you're being kind of...
I guess I'm just thinking of like slavery. I'm sure there were like something like slavery or something like... a morally evil act from the past that we've moved past, and we're a better society. We can recognize more of what good and wrong is, and that's just one example. But I can think of plenty more that we're backwards on now. Yeah. I'm sure there was good art back when slavery was a thing, and it's like to counteract my point. It's not like slavery is not a thing anymore. Like there's just as much slavery in today's society, just not here in the U.S. So yeah, I like your quote about society reflects. I mean, good.
It's not mine, but I don't even know where it's from.
Yeah, what was it though?
The state of a culture reflects the state of the art in the culture, something like that. I think we should be. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, but I think we're getting tired, and we'll probably start speaking heresy. You said I'm not sure I could watch Peaky Blinders again, or now, or whatever. Yeah. I think you're being too short on. You don't know what this next season is or this movie is. Like you're making a judgment on something that you don't know. Or like there's movies coming out today, but if you live in a constant state of society doesn't produce good art because look at our culture.
Yeah.
You'll never consume any art.
No.
Except for things that it just limits you a lot.
We'll see what happens because I've adopted this philosophy, especially this past recent weeks and months, and we'll see what I'll see. But
I'll say this before we finish out. I think this is such a brutally vulnerable and honest view of us right now because we're talking about stuff that we don't know. We're figuring this out as we speak. Like most of these thoughts you landed on this week. Yeah. So you haven't had time to test them out in real life. Yeah. And some of these thoughts that we're expressing, we found throughout this actual 2 hours. So it's going to be funny to look back in 3 years when we have more concrete thoughts about this because we're part of this YouTube channel is part of the reason that we think it's valuable is because we get to show what two guys trying to figure out truth looks like. It's not like we have the answers. We're just trying to figure it out. And then we have the conversation which we try to figure it out publicly, which is kind of humiliating in some instances. But I think there's real value in that for us too. But I think it's fun.
In this video in particular, we've alienated everyone.
Hey, maybe I'm wrong. You can just say that to the camera. Maybe I'm wrong. And then you're fine. Because what I'm trying to say is I'm not saying that we shouldn't speak truth when we know that something is true. I'm not like, I just watched the movie Conclave. I watched it. I caved. I know everyone was saying that it was not worth watching and it was morally depraved. I watched it because I was wanting to see if it was, and I agree. Here's what I have an issue with judging art without actually knowing if it's good. Like, I want to make my own mind about it.
So here's my thing.
Yeah.
If there is even a feeling, it's not worth it. I don't care enough.
Yeah.
There's so much great art that I'd rather watch than maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. I've heard mixed reviews. I don't care enough. Unless people are telling me it's a masterpiece, you have to watch this like a classic. Okay. But that's what John Bosco said. If you have any doubt about a book being not morally questionable, don't even bother.
Okay. I have to disagree. I don't know. Maybe you're right. But I think I like to give him the benefit of the doubt.
I don't think it's as black and white as like, so what, you're not going to watch anything now? And no, I think I can use my common sense whenever like, people are talking about something. Oh, this is good. And
but watching art like this strengthens my own position on what I believe is right and wrong. And it can lead me closer to God in that. You know what I'm trying to say? Because like it helps define what is right and wrong, even if something is not morally right. Anyways, my point on Conclave, let me just finish that. It's part of the reason that it was controversial is in the homily, the priest said something about we should run away from certainty. Like we are not called to be certain on anything. Of course, we're called to be, we should be certain on what we are certain is true. The reason I said all of this is, I'm not saying that part of this appeal of having us here is that we're saying, oh, I'm not certain about anything. I'm just like seeking the truth and like keeping the door open to being wrong. No, we can be certain about some things and we shouldn't be wishy-washy about everything. But I think we should be humble enough to admit that we don't, we've studied this for a week and like we've thought about this only for a few months, years at most. I guess that's my point.
And I would extend that humility to apply to art that you consume. In the fact that I don't feel morally strong enough to have this that I know has evil things, and maybe I know better, but it might still affect me.
No, I think you're right. I think it's very prudent to go in with that
because
attitude.
Actually I can say that because I've seen it affect me with Peaky Blinders, with shows that are, you're like, no, I know better, but I'll watch it because I like it for these reasons. I see it coming out in me in different ways.
Hey, I think that's very reflective. I think it's right. I think it's very prudent to why risk something that might lead me away from God in any sort of way. There's no reason to. The thing is, it can't only be bad. It could be bad. It doesn't have to be bad. But to your point, it's like, yeah, but it could be bad, so I'm not going to. I think that's a fair point to take. Yeah, okay. I think so. Okay, I think we should end it. What do you think?
Yeah.
Cool. Done.